Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. 25 days after Iran struck Israel with a barrage of ballistic missiles, Israel retaliated. Israel said that it carried out precise strikes on military installations inside Iran, but it did not attack nuclear facilities or oil fields. But there are some reports, some indication that perhaps those oil fields, oil refineries were also under some sort of an attack, or they could be attacked in the future. There were a couple of photographs that were also circulated. We'll try and put them up. In the meantime, there has been a little reduction in the oil prices, obviously, for the reason perhaps because Israel did not hit oil fields and refineries on a large scale. Now, Iran's supreme leader has said that this issue should neither be overplayed nor it should be underplayed. Now, what sort of a messaging is there? And Israel has made it clear, and so have the Americans, that if any further escalation is done by Iran, then obviously the retaliation will be even more intense. So, what are the signals that we are getting from Iran, from Israel, from America? We're joined by Prabhu Dayal. Welcome to the show, a former ambassador. Welcome to the show, Prabhu Dayalji. What are the signals that we are getting? We heard for a long time that Israel will retaliate, and then it did retaliate, and that retaliation was a limited sort of a retaliation. Iran tried to downplay it. Iran's supreme leader saying, but we're not going to downplay it so much. We're going to take it according to its merit, and we are going to respond accordingly. What are the signals that we are getting here?
Well, first of all, Zafar, thanks for having me on your show. As you rightly pointed out, there has been widespread concern whether the Israel Iran conflict will escalate and what would be the consequences of such an escalation for the entire Middle East region. Now, as you mentioned, on the 1st of October, Iran had launched a missile attack on Israel. And since then, there were fears that Israel was going to attack uh, Iran in retaliation in a very big way. Now, a few days ago, on in fact 26th October, there came these reports that Israel had carried out attacks through fighter jets against 20 military installations in Iran. And as you said, it was quite notable that Israel avoided attacking Iran's nuclear and oil sites. And there were media reports that it had done so because the Biden administration had emphatically warned against striking these. Uh, Now, as far as Israel is concerned, the Israeli Prime Minister said that the Israeli Air Force had hit Iran's defense capabilities, as also its ability to produce missiles. Now, fears naturally arose whether there would be an escalation of the conflict. And the big question was what would be Iran's response to these Israeli attacks? Now, there was a debate within Iran's ruling establishment. There were some who felt that the Israeli attacks warranted a strong military response and that Iran would be perceived as weak if it did nothing. Now, however, at the same time, there were many others who pointed out that the Israeli attacks were limited in nature compared to what had been feared, and that they had not done extensive damage. So, such people argued that an Iranian counterattack would lead to escalation because there could be another and a bigger Israeli strike, which would cause more damage than the one that was caused on the 26th. Now, in this context, I find it very significant what Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei has said. I think his words give an indication of how he wants Iran to take a strategy in this context. He said that Israel's attack should neither be uh, uh, should neither be overestimated nor should it be downplayed. Now, these are very significant remarks uh, because he went on to say that whatever is in the best interest of the people in the country, that should happen, that should take place. So, these remarks indicate that he leaves it to the government and he's not pushing for an escalation. Rather, he is saying that whatever is in Iran's best interests should be done. Now, what is in Iran's best interest? Iran has an ailing economy. Iran has been suffering from high inflation, rising unemployment, and a collapsing currency. So, for Iran's middle class, the economic situation has been terrible, and the standard of living in Iran has plummeted a lot uh, due to US sanctions. The Iranian regime has been trying to buy social peace with subsidies on items like food and gasoline. However, protests have been taking place in Iran against the rising cost of living. Now, if there was an escalation in Iran's conflict with Israel, there would have been adverse economic costs. And that may have affected the position of the ruling regime. The regime doesn't want itself to be weakened. It doesn't want to have more demonstrations. It doesn't want an outburst of public outrage. So it wanted that the situation should be kept controlled. And I think Ayatollah Khamenei's remarks are very significant because he said that this attack should neither be downplayed nor should it be exaggerated. There should be a balanced approach to it. The government should see the pros and cons of different courses of action, and it should take decisions in accordance with what are Iran's interests. And the interests are to prevent an escalation of the fighting, which, as I said, would adversely impact the economy.
Right. And that sounds a fair assessment. So clearly that Iran may not resort to a military retaliation, but there are other ways that that country can do. Iran is, of course, said to be, having many proxies in the region, like Hezbollah, like others. Already, Israel is engaged in a war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, in Gaza. So we may see some sort of an escalation on those fronts rather than a direct confrontation between Iran and Israel this time around. But this cycle is going to continue. Uh, what is important that Iranian had said that they will also target other oil fields in the region, which obviously will cripple the world's economy. That was the messaging that was put out, that if you target our oil fields, will oil is an important factor in all of this. In fact, there were a couple of still photographs that were circulating which showed some sort of a oil facility which was damaged or something. It may be true, it may not be true. These are unconfirmed photographs. But oil is an important thing because it may not only impact Israel and Iran and the Middle East, it may have an adverse impact on other countries in the world. Like China exports so much oil from Iran, and many countries are one way or the other dependent on this supply line of fuel.
Yes, indeed, that was a major reason of concern. A lot of analysts thought that if uh, Iran attacks Israel again, and then there is a counter attack by Israel, then Iran may resort to attacking countries in the southern part of the Persian Gulf, and which have the oil fields and which are big producers of oil, uh, and that they would be very much within Iran's striking distance. So, if the oil fields are hit, as you pointed out, Certainly, that would have impacted oil supplies, pushed up the prices of crude oil. And I understand that the Americans were not keen on this happening because American assets would have been adversely affected, and that they advised uh, Netanyahu not to attack the oil fields of Iran because, as you pointed out, there was a possibility that Iran would hit the oil fields of
Right. Okay, we seem to have some problem with the line there, but he's back. Yeah, you're back with us. We lost you
yeah,
briefly, sir.
yeah.
Yeah, yes. So what you're trying to tell us that, of course, it was the American pressure also on Israel not to hit those oil facilities that really prevented Israel to carry out such an attack that would target oil facilities or nuclear facilities. Some said that if nuclear facilities are targeted, then that will actually give an excuse to Iran to quickly make that transition into bomb making, and that would then be it would be a difficult situation for the West and Israel. But Israel has been saying that they specifically targeted the ballistic missiles. Remember, it was a barrage of ballistic missiles, about 200 ballistic missiles that were launched from Iran onto Israel. But now, where is it all heading? Of course, we saw that UN has been making noises, but it seems to be ineffective so far. The war has not stopped. Israel has been unable to bring back the hostages, about 100 of them still in Gaza. 1 year after that war started, it's a small area. They're still there. They have not been able to get them out. And there are other fronts that have opened in Lebanon. There have been exchanges with Iran. Will it spread more, or the sense that you have that now it may actually, this escalation will sort of will get limited in its scope in the near future?
Israel has said that it has been able to cause sufficient damage to Hezbollah. And there are reports that it has even suggested that now there could be a diplomatic solution. Uh, the situation in Gaza is terrible. Uh, the lives of people there are undescribably bad. And in fact, there are people who are saying that it doesn't matter whether we survive the war because we are going to die of hunger. Now,
Right.
relief supplies have been really very badly cut off by Israel. In fact, Israel has declared the UNWR, the UN Relief and Works Agency, which does the relief work in Gaza, as being a terrorist organization. And it has decided to outlaw it. It will not be allowed to act in the Gaza area. So, how will relief assistance be reaching the poor people there? So, their lives are terrible. It's worse than hell. Now, there is a need to find an urgent diplomatic solution. India has been asking for it. A number of countries have been saying. So, there has to be a serious attempt. The UN is powerless. In fact, Israel has declared the UN Secretary General a persona
Yes.
non
Non grata. Yeah.
grata. It doesn't really want the UN to play much of a role in this. So, where are things going to head? I think everyone is waiting for the US elections to get over because some clarity will emerge about the sort of policies which the new president or will have. And that will be a very big determining factor. So I think that till the US elections, there will be this kind of uneasy situation. Things will not go out of hand, but they will not subside either. There will be this continuation of the conflict. Unfortunately, that will increase the humanitarian suffering in the Gaza Strip. There will also be continued bombardment between Hezbollah and Israel. I may mention that according to reports which I read, 60 civilians died in Lebanon today on account of
Yeah.
uh, Israeli bombing, and about 75 died in the Gaza Strip. So human suffering is going to continue. Now, whether it will escalate, I don't think Iran will want escalation, because it's one thing to fight through the proxies. Iran has been fighting through its proxies, the Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. But its direct involvement is something that it has tried to avoid. However, as I said, Iran didn't want to appear as if it was just sitting on the fence and letting its proxies take, all the fire from Israel's side. So it did the first uh, missile attack on the 1st of October. But as we discussed, I don't think Iran wants an escalation. I don't expect another attack by Iran against Israel for the reasons as we described. This would lead to an escalation which would not be in Iran's interest. So Iran would like to just contain things at the present level.
And even while the war is raging on multiple fronts, as you were saying, there have been casualties in Gaza, in Lebanon. Today, also, there are reports that an Israeli airstrike destroyed a five-story residential building sheltering displaced families in Gaza, killing at least 109 Palestinians, including children, and wounding dozens. And Israeli strikes in eastern Lebanon have killed at least 60 people and injured about 58 others. Now, this is the country's health ministry that has put out those figures. And also, I was reading somewhere that some Israeli army has also taken some casualties. So there's an intense war going on. But you brought the U.S. elections in all of this has a crucial role to play. What is clear that Joe Biden is going to go, whether it's Kamala Harris or it's Trump. Do you think that a new president coming into US will actually influence the trajectory of this war, or it may not matter at all? These are state policies, whether by Israel or by America or by Iran.
No, there will certainly be an effect on this ongoing Middle East conflict or who comes into the White House. Let us see, because the new president will certainly not have the exact same policies as Joe Biden. In fact, Joe Biden is being blamed for giving a loose rope to Israel, and Israel has been merrily carrying out whatever it wants to. So it is expected that a new president, whether it is Trump or Kamala Harris, will try to rein in hostilities, because the new president would like to be seen to be decisive. The new president would like to be seen as somebody who has an impact on the global situation. And certainly, these two wars, the Russia Ukraine war and the Middle East one, they are affecting the entire planet. And various side effects are happening all over. Costs are going up because there is a disruption of supply chains and sea routes. So whoever comes in and into the White House will try and stamp his authority or her authority, and certainly I expect that there could be some way out of this conflict. However, that's still some time ago, some time to go, because the new president will only take office in January, and we have the whole of November and December to go through. But there will be some indications of the sort of policies which the new president will be following. For this reason, we can expect some clearer indications of how this Middle East conflict is going. But frankly speaking, Iran doesn't want to escalate. Uh, Israel wants to escalate. Israel wants that it should continue hitting Iran and draw in the United States also, because
Right.
that this will be an opportunity for it to try and destroy Iran's nuclear sites. Incidentally, Iran has not made nuclear weapons till now, but Israel doesn't want that Iran should have any nuclear weapons capability also. It should not be able to make these weapons in the future also. But the United States is not keen to be dragged in, because, as we discussed earlier, It is afraid that the oil producing countries, which are its allies, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, these would be very adversely affected, because there's a strong possibility that Iran will try to hit their oil producing sites, their oil refineries. So, I expect that the United States, in the foreseeable future, will try to rein in Israel and not allow it to let things take things totally in its hands. That is to say, escalate the war in such a way that it becomes unavoidable for the United States to also get drawn in. And I would still think that the next few weeks are going to be very, very tense and very tricky.
And lastly, sir, you clearly summed it up, and you said that Iran may not want escalation, Israel may want escalation to draw in the US, and there is an election taking place, a new president is to come in. The point is that, do you foresee this war ending anytime soon? We're seeing this spreading over the last 1 year, but do you think that there is a possibility that this war could actually end, perhaps with the return of the hostage, perhaps with Israel accepting the existence of Hamas? These are two extreme positions. Yes, Israel says that it's not going to see Hamas anywhere in the picture in Gaza in the future, and Hamas is also not releasing those 100 people. So these are extreme positions. Do you think in those circumstances this war could end anytime soon?
First of all, perhaps now there are not 100 hostages alive, because according to the reports which I have seen, even Israel feels that many of them are dead. But of course, it wants the remaining hostages alive. It wants the remains of those people who are dead. Hamas has lost its top leadership, and so has Hezbollah. Of course, now a new leader has been appointed in Hezbollah, but the top leadership of Hamas has been killed. So there is a possibility that such a weakened Hamas may agree to release hostages and may agree to whatever terms the Israelis are asking for, with some changes, some alterations. Uh, Iran is fully capable of reining in Hezbollah and also reining in the Houthis and Hamas. So Iran could be a very key player in this context. I may mention that the new Iranian president is a relatively moderate sort of person, and he wants to have a sort of a working relationship with the Western countries. He wants to improve that relationship. So, Mr. Pezeshkian, I think that he could play an important role, and I think he has also done so already, in the sense that the advice which he gave to the supreme leader would have influenced the words which the supreme leader uttered. And what the supreme leader in Iran says is very important. I have served in Iran for 3 years, and I know that the supreme leader's words are like a diktat which everybody has to follow. So the advice which the new president would have given would have been moderate in nature, and I think Ayatollah Khamenei's words reflect that. So there is an indication which the Iranians have given that they want to downscale the conflict. They don't want it to escalate. And Israel has also, to some extent, sent signals in this regard by not targeting the Iranian nuclear sites or the oil sites. And this perhaps has been due to US advice. So a lot will depend on the sort of advice which the United States gives to Israel, and of course, how much Iran succeeds in controlling Hezbollah and Hamas. If all that happens and the hostages get returned, I think we can have a peace process which will
Right.
work.
And that is very crucial. We'll have to leave it here. Prabhu Dayalji, thanks so much for joining in and for sharing your thoughts. And thanks to all our viewers for watching the Mojo Story.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.